the catch time, but Will is standing by to talk about what is effectively a lie. And the lie is that graduation rates say any. And yet 37% of Wisconsin students are proficient in reading or math. Now, I know that DPI put their thumb on the scale and just added an extra 12 points for everyone, but that doesn't change the reality that less than 40% of kids are actually proficient in reading and math. But Will, we have a 90% graduation rate. And I just saw a story last week, big story, how proud Boston was that they increased their graduation rate substantially. But it's essentially irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah, good morning. And we've seen that here too, right? I think Milwaukee Public Schools put out a press release about the higher graduation rate. Still in the 70s, by the way. It's not really something to be too proud of. But statewide, we've seen DPI trumpeting the increase in graduation rate. And you're absolutely right. You know, in a vacuum, you know, that might be a great thing. We'd love to see more kids graduating from high school. But you have to go beyond that. And it's what do these kids actually know when they graduate from high school? You look at data from the UW system about the number of kids that are needing remedial classes, still very high and increasing over time. You talk to folks in the workforce about people that can't even, you know, read the applications to apply for jobs or read the basics of the work they're going to be doing. It suggests we're graduating kids from high school that really shouldn't be doing so. And you're right, trumpeting this number by itself is really quite empty.
Yeah, and it's amazing. And I was actually looking as well at some information on advanced placement and on the ACT. And they've actually dumbed down advanced placement and the ACT. And so now you're not even getting a good bead on what the quality of education is if you're looking at high performance stuff. So you're looking at people who take the ACT. Those are people who are supposed to be college bound. And our ACT scores are not great, but I didn't realize they'd actually dumbed down the test, and we're still not doing that great. Advanced placement has just gotten easier so that more kids take it and more kids can get the credit for advanced placement. So you add all these things, it's a big head fake. And we do not have students that are smarter than they were 20 years ago or even know as much as they did 20 years ago.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I never would have thought we'd see the day we dumb down the AP test, right? That's one thing we thought we'd at least keep to a high standard. But you're right. There was news last week that the standards have been changed there. What we're seeing across the board is, and it goes through college really, but particularly the K-12 level, it's just an assembly line to get kids through. And you know what actually is learned along the way doesn't matter. Now that colleges are seeing declining enrollment, again, we're seeing the same thing there, where a college degree is even getting devalued because we sort of have to push kids through the system there as well. So it's an assembly line. We're not worried about the quality at the end. We're only worried about the number of outputs. And kids are falling by the wayside. And it's really a problem across the board because this is one area where it's challenging for schools to make changes because nobody wants to see their kid held back, right? Nobody wants to see their kids fail a graduation test if we had one like they have in some other states. So it really takes a concerted effort across the board to make changes here because parents aren't always the driving force to make things more challenging there as either.
So, and it's just amazing to me. So you take the kids who are supposed to be tracked into the more high performing areas. So advanced placement, that's AP. AP is artificially increasing passing rates. And I'm not sure if they're actually taking the material and making it stupid, but they're increasing the passing rates artificially. And so, you know, literally 2 years ago, you only had less than half of kids taking AP classes were getting the 3 or higher. It's on a 5-point scale. In 2025, 75% were getting 3 or higher. What changed? The only thing that changed was the way the material is scored, it seems to me. And so now I don't even understand how you can sustain this. And at the same time this is going on, we have what we know is the breakdown in the classroom. There was a wonderful story that was done a couple of weeks ago by Badger Institute. They looked at Beloit, largely at Beloit and La Crosse, I think, and why teachers were leaving the profession. There was just a national survey done that had over 75% of teachers saying they were completely dissatisfied with their jobs. And the overwhelming majority said it was PBIS, behavioral modification programs that do not permit them to discipline and get kids to focus and teach. Everyone's saying it's smartphones. It's not. It's the fact that they cannot discipline and teach.
Yeah, we're turning our classrooms into essentially just a babysitting service, right? And teachers are fed up with that across the board. You see data from Wisconsin, too, where I think it was from MPS, where over 40% of teachers said their reason for leaving the classroom was due to behavioral issues. So it's a national phenomenon. We're not teaching kids in school, and we can't be teaching kids in school because the discipline problems are too great. So teachers, again, are just babysitters, sort of doing their best to maintain control with no support from the administration, no support from school districts in many instances that just want to see few kids suspended and everybody graduating from high school. And if we keep those numbers looking good, then there's not going to be a huge amount of complaints, apparently, is what teachers, or is what incentive structure we've learned to create here.
I think that's true, though. What we see is that if you just shine people on, they believe your BS. They believe that it means something when you say, we had a 90% graduation rate in Wisconsin. That's utterly meaningless. That basically says illiterate people are being allowed to get a diploma. That's what it says, because only less than 40% are proficient. And if you are not even proficient at grade level reading, you're functionally illiterate. You're going to have a problem holding a job. And so we know that parents buy into this stuff. We had the highest ACT scores in all of Wisconsin. Yeah, well, your high ACT scores still look pretty below average if you take a look over time at what high ACT scores were supposed to be. At the same time, we have fewer kids in school and we have more money going out the door.
Yeah, and at some point, right, there is a sort of realization that maybe I haven't learned enough along the way. Maybe it's when you get to the workforce and you can't suddenly have an extra hour to take, to complete your work. You actually have to complete your work on time. Maybe it's when you get to a job interview and you can't read the application. But there is a point where we're actually harming the kids. There was another recent study that showed teachers that, just pass kids along actually hurt students' lifetime earnings in the long run because they can't make the grade when they get to the places where ultimately you do have to perform. When you get on a job, again, no one's giving you the extra time. No one's coddling you. No one's dealing with your behavioral issues. You're going to be out the door. And it used to be maybe you got to the university and that's where you'd sort of realize, oh, I need to shape up if I'm going to do well. Now we get through the college environment in many instances without having that realization. But the workforce is changing in that regard too much.
So what did Mississippi do that seemed to turn around their school system? And what other school districts, what other states, I guess, manifestly refuse? What did they do that made them successful?
Yeah, I think in this context, the most important thing is that there are reading tests that you have to pass to move on to fourth grade. And again, parents don't always like to hear that their kid is going to be held back, but in the long run, they benefit from learning the material before they're moved on. You look at other states like Florida, they have actual graduation tests where kids have to demonstrate mastery of the material before they can graduate from high school. So, we don't have that in Wisconsin. We have the citizenship test that students have to take, and that's great. But we should maybe consider having a broader graduation test because obviously schools aren't getting the job done. The other thing is to sort of change the incentive structure for schools where you don't really get credit for graduation and for getting kids moved on, but maybe you get some financial incentives if the kids are actually not taking those remedial classes in college. Or there's some tangible result that they're actually having more success in the workforce. So those are some things we should look at going forward for sure. But the system we have now is, again, letting us whistle past the graveyard like we do in all of our education stuff in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, Milwaukee Public Schools have, an 8% reading and math proficiency rate. It's insane. It's how bad it is. I mean, I don't even know how you pay. How would you spend a single dime for something that awful? And yet the answer, of course, to the teachers union is to file a lawsuit and have an infinite amount of money that would be spent on education. To do what? I mean, we're spending $20,000 per kid as it is. Mississippi spending $14,000 per kid. We're spending $20,000. They're getting kids proficient in reading. We're not. Florida, I don't know what Florida spends per student, but they're a far better system. So, if the answer is simply getting rid of this PBIS, which, by the way, was this crazy idea that was in the 90s. It was kind of, it never really caught fire. It was essentially universally instituted in 2015 with the Barack Obama Department of Education threatening to sue school districts if they had, quote, disparate impact on discipline, black versus white kids. And so now this is everybody. So it seems to me that it's pretty simple. Teach kids to read, get rid of this ridiculous system and don't use social promotion to advance kids from grade 4 to grade 5 or grade 8 to high school, right?
Those are the keys. And by the way, we have the Trump administration right now, who in Trump's first term, he repealed those regulations about disparate impact. So, there's no reason from the federal level to be afraid right now of intervention if you implement discipline in an effective way. We have a friendly administration that'll back you up.
But what they did, and I think this is just probably the Obama administration knew this was going to be true. They use it as an excuse. Oh, the federal government's telling us to do this. And that's why we've got to completely blow up, the discipline procedures in our school districts. Once that goes away, notice you haven't seen any school districts say, oh, thank goodness, we're finally able to get rid of this awful system that every teacher hates. Every teacher hates it.
Yes.
One last question. What happened to the $50 million to teach kids in Wisconsin to read by using phonics?
Yeah, so school districts are dragging their feet. It'll be interesting to see in this year what actually happens, and hopefully we'll see some tangible results. But it's still up in the air as to where all that money has gone. So hopefully there'll be some change. I'm not counting on it.
$50 million. The complaint was always, well, we can't change the curriculum because it's going to cost us money. So the legislature says, here's $50 million. And can't do it. Sorry, because it still hasn't happened. It still hasn't happened. Will Flanders, thank you very much for joining me on the program.
Thanks so much. Have a great day.